Have you ever wondered, if God wanted to say something to humanity, how would he choose to do it? In an age where science can analyze, measure, and explain almost every natural phenomenon, there are still moments that leave even the experts scratching their heads, completely unable to figure out what's going on. And those things don't come to scare us. They come to wake us up and get our attention. This video takes us through 10 strange phenomena actually recorded at real locations in the US, Canada, China, and Kazakhstan. Tall columns of light shooting straight up into the night sky. Perfect round cloud rings opening up high in the atmosphere. Mysterious sounds echoing so loud that whole communities hear them. Glowing streaks moving in very unusual paths. Clouds forming shapes that leave people stunned. These aren't just old stories passed around with no proof. They're real events caught on photos, videos, and told by multiple witnesses. And before we dive into these mysteries that can't be explained, feel free to leave a prayer in the comments below as a way to show your faith. Amen. Now, so you don't have to wait any longer, let's get right started with 1. The sky was split in two, one side pouring rain, the other side strangely dry. The sky over a city street near the Canadian border got torn right down the middle, straight in front of our eyes. Rain came down like a waterfall on one side, while the other side stayed completely dry and sunny. That moment made everyone stop and really look at what was happening. Cars slammed on their brakes, people stepped out from the sidewalks, and we all watched this invisible line dividing the air in a way we'd never seen before. In just a few minutes, they measured 2 inches of rain dumping hard on one half of the road, while the other half didn't get a single drop. Cameras caught a sharp dividing line stretching hundreds of feet, clean as if someone had built a wall between two masses of air. This kind of thing is usually called ultra-localized rain and tied to small convective clouds. But here, the boundary didn't spread or move at all like the weather models always predict. Ezekiel 1-4 says, "And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud with fire flashing forth and brightness all around." The Bible's descriptions of wind and clouds show that nature doesn't just move randomly, it can also become a way for something far beyond human measurement to show its power. Scientists quickly came up with ideas, saying it was probably just a pressure difference or a tiny convective cloud mass. But none of the models could explain why the rain line stopped exactly at the edge of the street without spilling over to either side. No gradual change, no wet middle zone, just one side soaked in rain and the other bone dry. Psalm 18:10 says, "He rode upon a cherub and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind." When people put those words next to what was just recorded, a lot of folks started seeing it as a hint that natural forces can still be directed in ways we never expect. If the weather can split so cleanly like that in only a few minutes, then what made that perfect dividing line? This wasn't just caught on camera, it's opening up a bigger question about how the sky can show us things we never even thought to consider. 2. A strange-shaped cloud that looks like a secret base up in the sky. Peeking out from behind the clouds, a huge shape suddenly appeared on top of the mountain. It made a bunch of cars slow down, and lots of people pulled over just to stare up at it. This wasn't some regular cloud drifting by. It was a structure just hanging there in the middle of the sky, so striking that anyone around Mount Shasta could tell something unusual was going on. Up on the high slopes, a disc-shaped lenticular cloud, maybe thousands of feet across, stayed floating in place for hours with almost no change. Its surface caught the light and made it look more solid than any normal cloud. Strong winds were blowing through the area, but instead of stretching out or breaking up, the cloud kept its perfect symmetrical shape, like it was locked in one spot in the sky. You can clearly see the whole thing moving slowly in videos taken from different angles. Psalm 104:3 says, "He lays the beams of his upper chambers in the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot." He rides on the wings of the wind. When you put that verse next to the sight of a cloud moving in such an orderly way, like something with purpose, many believers feel this isn't just weather. It's a reminder that signs in the sky were talked about a long time ago. On social media, some folks see it as proof of a hidden base or some kind of strange object. Others say it's just a natural thing caused by wind blowing over high mountains. Weather experts call it a lenticular cloud, but the way it stayed so steady for so long still sparks a lot of debate. The faith community pays special attention to its perfect symmetry and where it formed. They don't think it's a coincidence that it showed up in a mountain area known for all kinds of strange happenings. Ezekiel 10:9 says, "I looked, and there were 4 wheels beside the cherubim, 1 wheel beside each cherub, and the appearance of the wheels was like the color of beryl." Pictures of bright round structures appearing in the sky have been described before as a warning that the heavens can show things beyond our normal understanding. If these kinds of signs aren't as new as we might think, then every time one shows up, what exactly are we being reminded of? And if that cloud wasn't just something the wind made, then what might be hidden behind that calm, still surface? 3. A strange beam of light moves across the sky like it has a mind of its own. A sudden beam of light appeared right in the low clouds. It wasn't coming from the ground, and it didn't follow any normal path. The sky above got hazy, like something thin was covering it. The whole thing made people wonder about supernatural beings. Out in the countryside of Saskatchewan, Canada, several videos show long rays of light, hundreds of feet long, changing direction every few minutes. But they never pointed back to one clear source. People watching noticed the brightness would suddenly get stronger, then fade fast. The clouds around it didn't reflect the light the way normal refraction does. Instead, there was this separate, glowing area standing out against the sky behind it. Daniel 10:6 says, "His body was like beryl, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches." When these beams moved in uneven rhythms, a lot of folks thought of beings described with light, like some kind of presence, quietly watching and guarding something still hidden. The usual explanations are that it might be ground searchlights bouncing off low clouds, or light bending through thick, moist air. But no lighting equipment was found anywhere for miles around. Plus, the beams changed angle on their own, not following the wind at all. Regular refraction patterns just can't recreate this under the same conditions. Revelation 12:7 says, "Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon." When you put that next to these shifting light bands that look like they're scanning the sky, some believers see it as a sign. They think what's showing up isn't just physical. It points to an invisible battle protecting the world we can see. If light can move without depending on any source, what's guiding its path? And if these beams aren't just some weather effect, then the next time they show up, what exactly will they be searching for in the sky? 4. Mysterious glowing orbs, like the Ophanim angels. These glowing orbs suddenly appeared above the neighborhood, made sharp turns, stopped, then kept flying without making any sound at all. A bunch of videos from the suburbs in New Jersey show them responding to calls and hand gestures from the ground, leaving lots of people stunned when they realized the movements weren't random. Each orb looks about 5 to 10 feet across, giving off light that shifts from gold to blue while staying in perfect formation up in the air, spinning like a set of wheels nested inside each other. You can clearly see their curved paths repeating over and over without getting thrown off by strong wind. Some patrol units went close to the area, but didn't pick up any remote control signals or radio waves that would match a drone. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 15 says, "As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each of the 4-faced creatures." Pictures of round, orderly moving structures have been described before as signs of something present from above. reminding us that not every movement in the sky can be measured by our instruments. Some folks say these are test drones or glowing balloons, but there's no propeller system, no aerodynamic vibration, and no heat trail like you'd see from mechanical devices. Plus, the way the light changes color and rhythm with their motion hasn't been exactly matched by any commercial flying model out there. As the tech explanations start to fall apart, a lot of believers are noticing how the orbs keep perfect spacing, like they're on some kind of watch or monitoring mission. Ezekiel 10:12 says, "Their whole bodies, backs, hands, wings, and the wheels were full of eyes all around." That description is seen as a warning that wheel-like moving symbols were once mentioned to point to observation and control, like a reminder of the path humanity is choosing. If these orbs aren't following any normal flying rules we know, then what's guiding their paths? And if their presence carries a message, the next time they show up, are we being watched because we've drifted off the course that was set for us? 5. The mysterious door in the clouds over Lake Huron. A huge rectangular shape hung there in the gray clouds, so sharp and clear it looked like someone had cut and pasted it right into the sky, appearing above the calm water of Lake Huron. It wasn't some fuzzy streak of light or a broken piece of cloud. It was a real door with soft, glowing edges and a center that was pitch black and deep. If a true doorway really opened up high in the sky, would you dare believe your own eyes or think it was just a trick of the light? People saw this near the Michigan shore, in the area right along the Canadian border, a place that's had lots of reports of strange things in the sky over the years. Witnesses guess the door was hundreds of feet wide, with straight sides and almost perfect right angles. It just hung there steady for several minutes without blending into the clouds around it. Revelation 4:1 says, "After this I looked, and there before me was a door standing open in heaven." Those words sound like they explain it perfectly, because a door up in the middle of the sky isn't some strange new idea in the Bible. It's been described before as a sign of connection between two different realms. A lot of folks say it's just an optical illusion from layers of cold and warm air stacking up, but weather experts couldn't recreate that sharp rectangular shape with such steady edges. Plus, the military sent out an urgent response team, so they clearly didn't think it was just a regular cloud. The light coming from the door frame didn't scatter like sunlight bouncing off something. It seemed to come from the edge itself, giving the feeling of a real boundary between two spaces. Genesis 28:12 says, "He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it." When you put that next to this door floating over the lake, many believers feel it's more than just weather. It's a sign of an opening, a place where God's power allows heaven and earth to touch for a moment. If it really was a door that opened for a short time and then closed again, what was it for? And who would be allowed to step through? The whole thing didn't just amaze people. It stirred up faith that His kingdom isn't far away at all. It's just behind a thin veil we hardly ever get to see. And if that door ever opens again someday, would you be ready to walk toward that light? 6. Demon face at the music concert. A big concert full of bright lights and loud music suddenly stopped for a split second when the huge LED screen behind the stage flashed something that wasn't part of the show at all. A face with glowing red eyes and twisted features appeared for less than a second. It happened right in the middle of Diljit Dosanjh's concert in Sydney, with tens of thousands of people watching live. Videos from different spots in the stadium show the face popped up exactly when the singer made a triangle hand sign. It wasn't normal stage lighting or a scene transition. It was a clear, deep image that made the whole crowd scream at once. Do you really think a simple display glitch could make something that lifelike in less than one frame? Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." When people put this moment next to that warning, A lot of viewers felt what flashed on screen wasn't just static, it was a quick glimpse of something that's usually hidden. The lighting and sound engineers later said it could have been a glitch in the display system, but the timing with the hand gesture sparked big arguments all over social media. Hundreds of separate clips from different angles captured the exact same frame, proving it wasn't just one faulty device. The fact that the shape looked the same in every video raised real questions about where that image actually came from. Revelation 12:9 says, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels were hurled down with him." This Bible verse is often brought up as a reminder that invisible forces can show themselves in our world in unexpected ways. Even though many think it was just a technical glitch, a lot of believers feel that quick flash was a reminder of the never-ending battle between light and darkness. A battle where God's power is still in control of things beyond what we can understand. If it was only a brief look, will that face come back in a clearer way at the next show? 7. Mysterious circles in the clouds. Perfect round cloud formations appear in the sky, as if shaped by an invisible mold. They hang perfectly still in the air, even while strong winds swirl all around them. This has been seen in the Cascade Range, the same area where Kenneth Arnold first reported seeing unidentified flying objects back in 1947. Have you ever looked up and felt like the sky was hiding something behind those two perfect curves? These lenticular clouds have smooth edges that look almost like polished metal. They can stretch thousands of feet across and hold their shape for hours without breaking apart the way normal clouds do. They drift slowly, keeping that symmetrical stack of disks, which makes a lot of people say they look like objects hiding in natural camouflage, quietly watching the world below from a safe distance. Ezekiel 1:16 says, "The appearance of the wheels was like the gleaming of beryl, and the four wheels had the same form." Their appearance and construction being, as it were, a wheel within a wheel. That description makes many people think of circles nested inside each other in the sky, as if some moving structure is there behind what looks like harmless clouds. Meteorologists say it's just moist air getting squeezed as it flows over high mountains, but the almost perfect symmetry of these cloud disks and how they keep their sharp edges in strong winds still isn't fully explained. Many photos show a soft glow around the edges, reflecting sunlight in a way that's different from regular layered clouds. Daniel 7-9 reads, "As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool." The image of thrones and bright white light is often seen as a symbol of divine presence, reminding people to watch and recognize signs that don't belong to the physical world. Even though science calls this a natural phenomenon, many believers feel the clouds might be a curtain hiding signs meant to wake up humanity. If those disks really are vehicles of messengers, what exactly are they waiting for before coming closer to us? 8. The night sky suddenly turned blood red. A normal evening turned into a nightmare when the whole sky changed to a deep blood red color, covering the horizon and making coastal people quietly panic and leave their homes. This happened in Zhoushan, where light from hundreds of squid fishing boats far offshore is said to have reflected off low clouds. When you see the entire sky glowing red like it's burning from the inside, you'd wonder, is it just lights or some kind of sign? That red wasn't faint or quick. It was thick, like a glowing fog, lasting for hours without getting any weaker. It colored the sea and the buildings along the shore in a heavy, uneasy shade. Many who saw it said it felt like the sky was bleeding, with the light spreading unevenly and pulsing gently, almost like it had a heartbeat. The scene was both beautiful and hard to explain with normal rules. Joel 2:31 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes." People have long seen these words as a warning to stay awake and aware when strange changes happen in the brown sky, signs that no longer follow the usual natural patterns. Some experts say it came from powerful red LED lights on fishing boats reflecting through moisture in the air. Still, the brightness and how far it spread, miles and miles, make a lot of people wonder. Videos show the sky lit up from every direction with no clear single source, almost like the red was coming straight from the clouds above. Revelation 6:12 says, "The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair, and the whole moon became like blood." For a long time, pictures of the sun and moon changing color have been seen as reminders of the choices humanity has to make when nature shows things that are beyond our control. Even though it's explained as light reflection, many still feel the sky wouldn't change so dramatically without carrying some kind of message. If that red comes back next time, will it just be boat lights or a reminder we can't keep ignoring? 9. Project Blue Beam Light in Kazakhstan. A huge glowing light just hanging there in the night sky, shining bright like some kind of flying base, appeared right above the horizon and sent local people running out into the streets to look. This happened in Kazakhstan, where there aren't any tall skyscrapers or powerful lights around that could create a reflection like that. If a glowing shape just stayed still, right over your head for several minutes, would you think it was only a trick of the light? The light didn't flash like an airplane, didn't move in a straight line either. It slid slowly sideways, then suddenly changed direction, staying the same steady brightness the whole time it was visible. A lot of folks described it as a solid object surrounded by a white-blue glow, making no sound, leaving no smoke trail, but giving the feeling it was watching the ground below. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth nations will be in anguish and perplexity at the roaring and tossing of the sea." Those words sound like a serious warning, pointing out what happens when people ignore clear signs showing up right in the sky. Some people connect this to the Project Bluebeam idea, that it's projection technology meant to mess with what folks believe, but there's no proof of any ground equipment or strong enough laser source in the area. Whether it's a man-made plan or something unexplained, the fact remains, hundreds of witnesses saw the exact same thing at the same time. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke." When you put that next to a glowing mass hanging in the middle of the sky, many believe that any conspiracy, if there is one, can't go beyond God's ultimate control, and these signs may be revealing what's been hidden. If this is just the beginning of something much bigger, what happens if we keep brushing off the signs? The light eventually disappeared, but the question still hangs there. Are we watching the opening act of a moment we can't turn back from? 10. Strange light moving oddly inside the clouds. A light source moved in a strange way right inside the low clouds. It didn't fall, didn't rise, just slid sideways like it was hiding behind thick fog. Many people watching stood still for minutes. This was caught on video in the Bay Area, where the sky usually has satellites we know well, but this time the movement was completely different. If a beam of light could live inside the clouds for hours, would you call it technology or something beyond our understanding? The light flashed without any regular pattern, changed direction suddenly like it was reacting to something invisible down on the ground, and moved in curves you couldn't predict. No sound, no falling signals, just a path that looped around, then stopped right in the middle of a thick cloud bank about 2,000 to 3,000 feet above the houses. Ezekiel 1:14 says, "The living creatures ran back and forth like flashes of lightning." That verse feels like a final word, pointing out that these lights moving in the sky aren't just physical things. They could be signs of a higher authority at work in ways people can't control or stop. Some folks think it was a string of Starlink satellites reflecting sunlight, but the path didn't go straight, didn't keep steady spacing, and didn't fade out like the usual passes. The whole thing lasted hours on end in the same cloud area, so the regular tech explanations started to lose their power. Psalm 148:3 says, "Praise him, sun and moon. Praise him, all you shining stars." Those words are a full reminder that every light in the sky is under ultimate direction, not just to shine, but to guide anyone looking for direction in this chaotic world. If that light wasn't there to show off, but to point the way, are we maybe looking at a promise sent right from the sky? And when it shows up again, will you recognize the path it's trying to show you? Here are 10 unusual things that have shown up, not following the normal patterns of nature, from floating beams of light, doors hanging in the sky, to movements that no technology we have can explain. When you put them side by side, they stop looking like random events. Instead, they start forming one clear pattern, almost like the sky is repeating a message that humanity heard once, long ago, but then forgot. Luke 21:28 says, "When these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." This verse isn't just comfort. It's a reminder that these signs in the sky aren't meant to scare us. They're meant to wake us up and turn our eyes back to the place where all real hope begins. Strange shaped clouds, silent moving lights, shapes that appear and then vanish right before anyone can get close. All of this is making us look at the sky in a different way. It's no longer just curiosity, it's active listening. It's stopping for a moment to pray and to search for the meaning behind what's happening overhead every night. Joel 2:12 says, "Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning." That's a clear call to action. No delay, no waiting for more proof. The signs we're seeing are already enough to remind us that faith can't keep being put behind doubt. The sky isn't just space, it's a message from God. Are you ready to listen? If you feel something when you look up, leave your own prayer or thought in the comments below. End quote, end quote, end quote. Let's share and encourage each other's faith at this time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any message that might be coming in the days ahead. Thank you for watching, and I'm praying for you and your family to stay safe and at peace under His protection. Amen.
People are talking about a different type of cloud control. Are aliens using
at this, see that inside this amorphous blob, there seemed to be glowing.
Are we stepping into the last days without even realizing it? When the ground splits open, the sky changes color, and strange objects show up one after another. Is that just nature? Or a warning? In Kenya, a 50-foot deep crack tore right through the roads. In Philadelphia, a weird glowing object zipped past power lines. Los Angeles turned red from smoke. California lit up with a rare aurora. Mexico caught a metallic object hidden in the clouds. Florida had a round ring of light like a gateway. The sun looked suspicious through a lens at 34,000 feet. Texas shared images of winged things. Chicago showed an ice cross. And after a storm, dark metallic clusters poured down to the ground. 10 events stretching from earth to sky, coming one right after the other like a string of signals. Do you think this is just coincidence or a reminder to take a fresh look at our faith? If you believe God is warning us, leave a prayer in the comments below and stick around for the next part. Amen. And now, so you don't have to wait long, let's get right into 1. The earth torn apart, a terrifying split in Kenya. The ground in Kenya suddenly ripped open, spreading wide and swallowing a whole road right in the middle of the day. A huge crack opened up in the Rift Valley, cutting across the Nairobi-Narok highway, stopping traffic and splitting fields in just a moment. About 50 feet deep and nearly 65 feet wide, it opened like the planet's crust had been stretched tight and then torn apart right in front of us. You can imagine how it feels when the ground under your feet isn't steady anymore. This happened in the East African Rift, where the tectonic plates pull apart a few millimeters each year, a slow process that might create a new ocean in millions of years. But when the earth shakes, when the road collapses, and videos capture the land moving like it's breathing, the idea of millions of years suddenly feels very close. Joel chapter 2 verse 10 says, "The earth quakes before him, the heavens tremble, the sun and moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness." Those ancient words echo loudly in this modern scene, like a serious warning. Geologists talk about heavy rain, erosion, and pressure building up underground. They study rock structures, the rate of spreading, and tectonic maps. But this crack didn't just show up randomly somewhere. It sits right on the line where the continent is splitting. Isaiah chapter 24 verse 19 says, "The earth will be broken up. The earth will be split open. The earth will be violently shaken." When you read those words, a picture of the ground cracking apart stops being just scientific data. In Zechariah chapter 14 verse 4, it says, "His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two, making a very large valley." The image of a mountain divided in half, opening a huge valley from its highest point, makes what's happening in the Rift Valley today feel like more than just normal Earth movement. It feels like a warning being repeated through rock and dust. We can call it a natural process that takes millions of years, but the moment the ground tore open only took a few seconds. The split wasn't as loud as a siren, but it was enough to make people stop and look down at their own feet. If this is just one crack, why did it appear right when the world is seeing so many other big changes? The crack in Kenya is still there, slowly getting wider over time. It might just be part of the tectonic cycle, or it could be a sign that the foundations we think are solid are starting to shift. The question still hangs. If the ground keeps pulling apart, will the cities, the roads, and everything we count on as stable stay standing? 2. Mystery cloud cover. Alien being shows up in Philadelphia. It appeared right in the middle of the day, sparkling, then ducking out of sight just as the camera caught it. Up in the sky over North Philadelphia, near the corner of 7th and Tioga, a clear shape suddenly showed up. It kept changing form, then moved off like it knew what it was doing. Hector Garcia held up his phone and recorded it. In just a few hours, the video passed 1 million views and sparked a huge wave of arguments. That thing didn't drop or tumble around like trash caught in the wind. It glided along the power lines with a steady path, almost like it was searching for something. Inside the hazy cloud, there were flashing lights, blinking on and off, not like regular sunlight bouncing off. When you look frame by frame, it doesn't feel like you're watching a puff of vapor. It feels more like something alive, deliberately hiding itself. Luke chapter 21 verse 25 says, "There will be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in confusion because of the roaring seas." Those words don't describe the exact shape, but they point to a common feeling: confusion. That same feeling is covering the people who saw this. Nobody is really sure what they just witnessed. Local officials say it was probably just light trash or some reflective material blown up by the wind. But this object changed direction smoothly, stayed at the same height, even shrank and stretched out before disappearing behind a rooftop. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 4 records, "I looked, and there was a stormy wind coming from the north, a large cloud, fire flashing non-stop, brightness all around, and in the middle of the fire, something like gleaming metal." The picture of a cloud holding light inside makes a lot of people think there's a real connection here. Similar sightings have been reported in other states too, with almost the same description: clear shape, inner lights, purposeful movement. No drone reports, no civilian flying device has claimed it. Revelation chapter 12 verse 3 says, "Then another sign appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its heads." That's symbolic language. But the phrase "another sign appeared in heaven" rings like a key to what's happening now. If this is just some weather thing, why does it show up with a stable structure and light coming from inside? If it's just a lifeless object, why does it change shape right before it leaves view? Those questions still have no official answer, and the gap in explanation keeps growing. Signs in the sky aren't rare anymore. When a cloud moves like it's watching us, the line between natural and supernatural starts to blur. And if those things up there really are keeping an eye on us, one last question hangs in the air. Is this just a one-off appearance, or the beginning of something much bigger on the way? 3. Doomsday Dawn. Fiery sky over Los Angeles. That morning, the whole western horizon looked like it was on fire. Deep red spread across every tall building and reflected off the windows like flames rising right in the middle of the city. Have you ever stood in front of a sunrise and felt your heart sink with a bad feeling? It wasn't some poetic moment for taking pictures anymore. That sky left a lot of people speechless with fear. Downtown Los Angeles, smoke from the wildfires drifted in from dozens of miles away. It mixed with the low clouds and formed a dark red dome like glowing coals. Those swirling bands of color up high were breathtakingly beautiful, and at the same time, they felt like something serious was being announced. Plenty of folks stopped on the sidewalk and just stared up in silence. Joel chapter 2 verse 31 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes." Those ancient words rang out like an indictment hanging over that blazing red sky. When the morning light turned from soft to the color of blood, it didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. Thick red streaks mixed with black smoke, creating vivid layers like an oil painting, but heavier, more unusual than normal. Some people said it was just an optical effect, dust and pollution building up in the air. Still, the brightness and the deepness of the color that morning went way beyond anything locals had seen for years. Acts chapter 2 verse 20 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord." End quote. When two witnesses, centuries apart, both talk about a sky changing color, we can't just ignore it. The Bible doesn't only describe what happens, it points to the meaning behind it. The authorities reassured everyone that it all came from wildfires and bad weather conditions. Meteorologists explained about dust particles and humidity, trying to fit it into the usual scientific box. But the unease in people's hearts couldn't be measured with instruments. That feeling was more like a warning than just a natural accident. Matthew chapter 24 verse 29 says, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." That's not comfort. It's a charge against a generation so sure of its own power. When the sky changes its face, it's like the indictment has been read aloud. That blood-red dawn wasn't just a stunning picture for social media. It was like a wake-up bell ringing through the busy streets, reminding us that judgment isn't some far-off story. If daylight can turn the color of blood in just a few minutes, what's waiting when true darkness finally falls? Was this just one strange morning, or the opening sign of even rougher days ahead? Are you ready if the sky changes color again, and this time there's no familiar excuse left to explain it away? 4. Strange lights in California, aurora that shouldn't happen. That night, the California sky wasn't its usual dark velvet anymore. It suddenly lit up, swirling with bands of color so captivating they seemed to come from another world. What would you think if you were standing on the Pacific coast and saw lights dancing right overhead? Not in Alaska, not near the poles, but in a place where auroras are almost never seen. Along more than 800 miles of coastline, from Northern California all the way down to Southern California, people stepped outside when word spread about those strange moving lights. Astronomers talked about a powerful solar storm, but what everyone saw went way beyond a science report. Green, purple, and pink lights shimmered like they were painted by hand, twisting into living arches. At times, the bands moved in clear patterns, then suddenly changed direction, leaving the crowd silent, stunned, and puzzled at the same time. Phones went up, whispers spread faster than the waves, but deep down many felt they were witnessing something bigger than just pretty lights. Isaiah chapter 13 verse 10 says, "For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark when it rises, and the moon will not shed its light." Those old words felt like a hint that changes up there aren't random. When familiar lights twist and change, it wakes up faith in searching hearts. Experts explained it as a rare atmospheric event caused by an unusually strong solar storm, part of the sun's activity ramping up in its cycle. But what got people thinking was how often these strange sky events are happening lately. This wasn't just one-off anymore. It felt like a series of signs following one after another. Revelation chapter 6 verse 12 says, "The sun became black as sackcloth, the moon became red like blood." When strange colors poured down from space, those words didn't feel so far away. It seemed like a reminder that the universe can shake in ways we can't control. Amid all the talk and analysis, the lights kept swirling, drawing shapes across the sky that were hard to name. Some said it was just weather, but the sacred feeling in that moment whispered something else. When people look up and feel small, that's often when faith gets a chance to grow. Luke chapter 21 verse 11 says, "There will be great signs from heaven." That short statement feels more like an invitation than a final word. If these lights really are signs, they're not just for us to admire, they're calling us to think deeper. Eventually, those glowing bands faded away, leaving the night sky quiet, as if nothing had happened. But the question still hangs there. Could this be an invitation from on high, urging people to look up and get ready for bigger changes coming closer? 5. Mysterious metal object in Guadalajara, Mexico. It peeks out, glints, then disappears behind thick clouds. On the Periférico Highway in Guadalajara, a driver suddenly slows down when he spots a round metal object hanging in the sky. No engine noise, no propellers, just a shiny block reflecting sunlight like polished steel. The video shows it moving slowly, holding a steady height, appearing and vanishing behind the gray clouds. It doesn't zoom off like a plane, doesn't wobble like a drone. It glides with purpose, almost like it's watching what's below. If you were behind the wheel right then, would you keep driving? Or pull over to get a better look? This area isn't far from places where people have reported metallic orbs near Pico de Orizaba. The similarity has a lot of folks asking, is this some kind of test technology or something beyond what we currently understand? No statement from aviation authorities, no official news, just a spreading video and a long silence. Daniel chapter 7 verse 13 says, "I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven." The picture of coming with the clouds doesn't feel so far away anymore when a real metal object hides in the clouds and shows up right in front of regular people on the road. That old verse feels like a key to seeing what's happening today in a different way. Some say it's just a drone or a weather balloon catching the light. But no drone reports match this height and movement, and the perfect round shape makes the balloon idea pretty weak. The object keeps its distance. It doesn't come close, doesn't race away too fast, like it controls every inch of its path. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 16 describes, "The appearance of the wheels was like the gleaming of beryl. Their appearance and workmanship were like a wheel within a wheel." That image of round, shining, complicated structures makes many people think of machines that don't belong to ancient times. Could those old visions be mirroring what people today are catching on camera? Revelation chapter 1 verse 7 declares, "Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." That statement isn't just a promise, it's also confirmation that the appearing won't be quiet. When a striking object shows up in the daytime clouds and draws the eyes of thousands watching online, the words, "every eye will see," really make you stop and think. This isn't just another viral story for fun on social media anymore. A metal object appears, moves with control, then slips back into the clouds without any official explanation. If it's a sign of the Son of Man coming with the clouds, then it's not only an image, it's a warning. And the final question still hangs there. Did that object just pass by chance, or is it watching, waiting for the right moment to show itself again? 6. Florida Sky Circle, a heavenly gate suggestion. A perfect ring of light hung in the sky over Tampa Bay. It appeared, then slowly faded away, with no clear explanation. It didn't flash like lightning or spread like clouds. Instead, it framed the sky like a round silver gate. Cars slowed down, people looked up, and for that moment, everything went quiet. A group of young people filmed it when the circle was at its brightest. The edge was sharp and even, like someone drew it with a compass. No sparks, no boom, just a perfectly balanced ring of light that was hard to believe. If you stood right under it, would you call it an atmospheric thing or a sign placed exactly where it needed to be? Weather experts say it might have been a 22-degree sun halo caused by sunlight bending through ice crystals high up. That explanation makes sense, but the feeling it left behind didn't stop at science. The ring didn't just reflect sunlight, it gave the impression of a boundary between two worlds, as if the sky had quietly opened to show something hidden. Genesis chapter 9 verse 13 says, "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth." A sign in the clouds isn't new in the Bible. When a complete ring of light appears in the sky, it brings back that image of a covenant, not with words, but with light itself. The sight lasted just a few minutes before it faded, leaving no smoke trail or weird clouds behind. No one could touch it, and no one could fully explain why it showed up at that exact time. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 28 describes, "Like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the radiance around him." That image of a glowing ring around a presence makes many people think of glory beyond the physical world. Revelation chapter 4 verse 3 says, "A rainbow that shone like an emerald encircled the throne." The ring wasn't just a light effect, it stood as a symbol of power and promise. As that circle floated in the Florida sky, it reminded people that the covenant is still real, but a covenant always comes with responsibility. Some call it an atmospheric oddity, a rare weather event, but the perfect shape of the circle and the deep feeling it stirred made many think bigger. The light didn't threaten or destroy. It invited quiet thought. This circle might be a reminder of mercy, but it could also be a signal that history is moving toward a set meeting point. When the light closed up and the sky went back to normal, one question still hung there. Was it only refracted light, or was a door slowly opening to something much bigger? 7. NASA exposed. Sun rising from clouds shakes up science. The sun doesn't rise from the horizon. It pops up right out of the clouds at around 34,000 feet. A passenger on a flight from Atlanta to Toronto pulled out a Nikon P900 and caught the moment on video. The clip spread fast across social media. That image puts a big question mark on the 93 million miles figure science has always told us. In the slightly shaky frame from the plane, the red-orange glow doesn't show up at some far-off curved edge. It slowly appears right in the middle of thick clouds. No clear horizon line, no endless hazy distance, just sudden light breaking through and hitting the lens straight on. Lots of people watched it over and over and started doubting what they'd been taught. The video went viral with claims that NASA is hiding the truth, that the sun might be a lot closer than we think. The official explanation calls it an optical illusion caused by the viewing angle and light bending in the upper atmosphere. But when the picture doesn't match what we're used to imagining, the doubts just keep growing. Job chapter 26 verse 7 says, "He hangs the earth on nothing and suspends it over empty space." That picture describes an earth with no visible foundation, hanging in the middle of nothing by a power far beyond us. If we haven't fully figured out that structure yet, are all our current models really the final answer? Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22 says, "He sits above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers." The phrase "circle of the earth" has been debated for a long time about the shape and workings of the world. When the sun shows up from the clouds instead of a distant edge, lots of folks bring up this Bible verse as a key to seeing things differently. Psalm chapter 19 verse 1 declares, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands." The sky isn't just empty space. It's a living statement about power and design. Even if this phenomenon gets explained by optics, it still forces people to face the limits of what we really understand. NASA says it's just a light effect at high altitude, where the curve of the Earth and cloud layers create an illusion. That argument has solid physics behind it, but the video keeps getting shared as proof of something else entirely. When science and what we feel clash, the question of truth gets harder to ignore. This doesn't have to flip every model upside down, but it does remind us that human science keeps changing and growing, while the one who built the universe is still in control. If the sun can look closer from a different angle, maybe that shows the universe is bigger than we picture, and the truth runs deeper than any temporary claim. 8. Winged figure, strange creature in Texas. A winged shape hovers in the Texas night, gliding along power lines before flashing bright and vanishing. A TikTok video captured the moment in the Lodge area amid strong winds and deep darkness. When you slow down the clip frame by frame, that uneasy feeling doesn't go away easily. The figure appears out of nowhere, wings spread wide like it's balancing in midair. It doesn't flap constantly like a bird, and it makes no engine noise like a drone. Light flashes around its blurry body, almost as if it's pulling energy from the power lines below. Many folks say it's just something caught by the wind or a trick of the light, but the purposeful movement, the exact pause on the wire, and the instant disappearance after a bright flash raise more questions. Earlier reports of hovering objects in San Antonio with spinning metal parts only make the picture more complicated. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 2 says, "Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces. With 2 they covered their feet. And with 2 they were flying." Winged beings aren't strange in the Bible, where holy creatures appear between heaven and earth. When a winged shadow hovers in the Texas night, many people quickly connect it to those ancient descriptions. Ezekiel chapter 10 verse 1 records, "Then I looked, and above the vault, over the heads of the cherubim, something like a sapphire throne appeared." Visions of supernatural beings often come with light and power. The flashing glow around the blurry shape in the video makes viewers wonder if it's just an electric field or a presence beyond the physical. Revelation chapter 4 verse 6 says, "Also in front of the throne there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. In the center, around the throne, were 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and in back. These creatures don't resemble any ordinary animal. They appear as messengers at key moments. When a winged figure shows up and vanishes without a trace, those Bible passages suddenly feel very alive. It could be a light illusion in strong wind, or maybe an unidentified object. But if holy beings were once described as appearing in the sky to deliver messages, then this can't simply be dismissed as a weather prank. It serves as a reminder that the visible world isn't the whole story. That winged figure might be a sign of protection, or it could be a reminder that a spiritual battle is underway. If those shapes keep appearing in the sky, we have to ask, are they messengers bringing word from above, or a clever disguise testing our faith? 9. The Chicago Cross, a bright symbol made of ice. A glowing cross lights up in the Chicago winter sky, with 4 beams of light crossing perfectly inside a ring of ice. Skiers stop on the frozen lake, holding their phones high to capture that rare moment. If you were standing there in that cold wind, would you call it a coincidence or a sign? The ring of light around the sun is a 2-degree halo caused by ice crystals bending the sunlight. Weather experts call those bright spots sundogs, but this time 4 long beams stretch clearly horizontal and vertical, crossing to form a perfect, balanced cross. The same thing happened again the next winter, almost in the same spot above the city. The light reflects off the white snow, making the symbol stand out even more. It's not a random cloud streak or the shadow of a tall building. It's a clear, optical pattern. People who saw it whispered to each other, not about the weather, but about what it might mean. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn." When a symbol tied to faith shows up in the heavens, that Bible verse rings like a quiet warning. Signs in the sky aren't just for looking at, they're for reminding us. Galatians chapter 6, verse 14 says, "But as for me, may I never boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ." The cross used to be an instrument of execution, but it became the symbol of salvation. When light forms a cross in the sky, it asks us how we feel about that sacrifice. Revelation chapter 21, verse 23 says, "The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light." True light doesn't depend on the sun or moon. It comes from God's glory. The Chicago halo, even though science explains it, still brings to mind a light that goes beyond nature. Some people say it's just light refracting through ice crystals, something that can be predicted. That's true scientifically, but the repeated cross shape and how it matches the symbol makes many people think deeper. Science tells us how the light passes through ice, but it doesn't explain why the symbol touches the heart. The cross in the sky doesn't threaten, it calls. It doesn't force anyone, but it puts people at a choice: ignore it or think about it. If the sign of the Son of Man is truly promised to appear in the sky, then every halo shaped like a cross is a reminder that time isn't endless. This event may only last a few minutes in the Chicago cold, but its meaning can stay much longer in the minds of those who saw it. If it's a quiet warning about faith that's fading, will we listen before the next signs become clearer? 10. Metal rain. Strange black clumps after the storm. After the last howling gust died down, a man stepped out onto the still-soaked street and froze when he saw the road covered with shiny black clumps. They weren't just sitting there. They shrank, split apart, then came back together like they were breathing. What would you do if something like that showed up right in front of your house? Tiny pieces the size of a fingertip crawled slowly across the asphalt, sticking together into bigger clumps, then breaking apart again. The streetlights shone down, and their surfaces glinted like wet iron. No one heard any sound, just saw them slide along inch by inch through the rainwater. Some folks filmed it, others slammed their doors shut. No exact place named, just a quiet suburb after the storm. Joel chapter 2 verse 2 says, "A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like dawn spreading over the mountains." The picture of black clouds wasn't just up in the sky anymore. It felt like they'd come down to the ground. Those black clumps stretched along the street like a curtain. The question isn't what they are anymore, it's what they're warning about. Some people watching this talk about leftovers from solar storms, metal dust pulled down by the magnetic field, or strange moisture patterns forming solid shapes. The ideas sound neat and tidy. But these clumps move in an orderly way, gathering, then separating, like something invisible is guiding them. They bring to mind old stories about iron ash falling on ancient cities, covering roofs and fields. Amos chapter 4 verse 13 says, "He who forms the mountains and creates the wind, who reveals his thoughts to mankind, who turns darkness into morning and treads on the high places of the earth. The wind built the storm. After the wind came this thick black stuff left behind." If every part of nature is in the Creator's hand, then this can't just be brushed off as some random accident. Skeptics say it's only pollution, industrial bits, or dead algae clumped up. Maybe. But the way they move, almost like they're alive, and how they all act together after geomagnetic disturbances makes that explanation feel pretty thin. Science gives the how. The Bible gives the why. Revelation chapter 16 verse 21 says, "Great hailstones fell from the sky on people, each weighing about a talent." A talent is around 75 pounds. End quote. If hail was once a mark of wrath, then these small metal clumps today might be an early sketch of something much bigger. Light first, heavy later. Warning first, judgment later. When the ground is still wet from the storm and the road is sparkling with metal, it's not just a weird sight. It might be the final reminder that time isn't on our side. If these black clumps spread farther, if they join into something much larger, the world will change in ways no one can control. And when that happens, are you ready? 10 signs have passed right in front of us. From bright streaks tearing across the sky, strange sounds ringing in the middle of the night, to a glowing cross in the freezing cold and dark clusters after storms. Each one alone can be explained away. But when you put them side by side, they form one steady line of warnings. Not loud, not random, but coming one after another, like steady bell strikes, hitting the human conscience. When we look at everything in the light of Scripture, fear doesn't have to be the end. It becomes the starting point of faith. Because if there are warnings, there's also a way out. If there are signs, there's also the one who holds authority over every single sign. Matthew chapter 24 verse 42 says, "Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming." This isn't a threat, it's a wake-up call. Staying awake doesn't just mean keeping your eyes open for strange things. It means opening your heart to God's Word. When the world shakes, what keeps us steady isn't knowledge, it's faith in the right place. These 10 signs aren't meant to push us into despair. They remind us time isn't endless. They call us to come back, to read the Bible again page by page, to think about every promise, and to get on our knees in prayer. From that first fear, we can step into solid hope, because the one who judges is also the one who saves. If what's been shared here touches your heart, leave a short prayer in the comments, or just write your honest thoughts. The prayer doesn't need to be long, just real. Who knows? The words you write today might quietly lift up someone else who's been worrying alone. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next message. Not to follow one person, but so we can keep the fire of being awake burning together in these times. Every share can carry this reminder to one more family. Thank you for staying with me to the end. I pray the Lord keeps you and your family safe and peaceful, protected through every shaking, and guided in the truth every day. May grace and mercy be with you. Amen.
Are you recording this? What's going on?
Are we living in the last days the Bible warned about? If one morning you look up and the sky doesn't feel peaceful anymore like it used to, what would you do? Early in 2026, a whole series of powerful events broke out all over the world, tearing through the night, shaking up social media, and spreading a deep sense of unease like an unstoppable underground wave. A bright green beam standing straight up in the sky, a giant face rising out of storm clouds, streaks of fire shooting down like they were aimed, glowing orbs hanging silently, the sky flickering as if reality itself is cracking, fiery rings floating in the air, dark shadows moving through thunderstorms, streaks of light being chased at dawn. All of it came one after another, covering the whole planet with images that make people stop and wonder about what's coming next. Is this just coincidence? Or is it the clearest warning we've ever gotten? Is time moving faster than we think? If you feel the urgency in every one of these signs, leave a prayer in the comments as your way of standing up for your faith. And get ready to face each event as it comes, because what's waiting ahead is going to show you that humanity is closer to the final days than ever before. And now, so you don't have to wait any longer, let's get right into it. 1. A mysterious beam cuts across the sky. A tall green column of light stands straight up in the night sky, ripping through the darkness and sweeping down over every rooftop like a huge blade slicing the heavens. The whole city wakes up in seconds. Phones light up, car horns go off, social media blows up with hundreds of videos of the same scene. Right then, we realize the sky we thought we knew doesn't feel like ours anymore. It first appeared in Arizona, then moved to Texas, lighting up an area about 1 to 2 square miles, with no thunder, no lightning, no engine sound at all. The beam just hung there, eerily still, no flashing, no wobbling, like an invisible hand was holding it steady in the air. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity." Those old words suddenly sound loud amid all the modern chaos. Witnesses described it as eerily still, the light thick and strong, cutting through the clouds and clearly showing every street below. No statement from the FAA, no scheduled military drill, no official explanation that could calm everyone down. Matthew 24:29 says, "The sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." As that light just floated there, without moving, that shaking feeling seemed to have already started. Some folks quickly blamed it on a drone or big spotlights. Others talked about tech that can mess with the sky. But videos from different angles show no real source, no moving parts, just a pillar of light hanging quietly before it suddenly disappeared, like it never existed. Revelation 6:12 says, "When the Lamb opened the 6th seal, the sun turned black like sackcloth. The whole moon became red as blood." Pictures of the heavens changing have never been unusual in the Bible. That beam wasn't just something to look at. It felt like a wake-up call, a reminder that our normal world can fall apart in a flash. When the sky starts acting strange, everything we rely on begins to feel shaky. If this was the first warning, it came through very clear in the middle of the night. And if that green pillar was only the start, what happens when the sky stops staying quiet? Are we seeing the opening chapter of something much bigger coming, or a last call to wake up before the final door shuts? 2. A strange face in the clouds. Right in the middle of a thick gray storm over Grand Falls, New Brunswick, a giant face suddenly appeared in the swirling clouds. The features were so clear, eyes, nose, and lips, that people froze for a few seconds, just staring. The video spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views in no time. All of a sudden, this quiet little town became the center of a question nobody wanted to say out loud. Is something up there, looking down at us? The storm clouds moved fast with the wind, rolling and breaking apart, but that face held its shape almost perfectly for a few minutes before it finally faded. The angle of the face gave it real depth, the forehead, eye sockets and chin stood out like they'd been carved into a huge block of vapor. When you watch the video again, it's hard to shake the feeling that the sky is looking right back at you. Meteorologists quickly pointed to pareidolia, the way our brains see familiar shapes in random things like clouds or rocks. They talked about air pressure, convection currents, and how light and shadows just happened to line up, but they couldn't really explain why the shape stayed so steady in all that wild movement around it. Science gives one way to look at it, but it still leaves some big questions unanswered. Meanwhile, the Bible has long talked about signs appearing in the clouds, signs we shouldn't take lightly. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." Seeing a huge face rise up in thick clouds makes a lot of people think of a message that goes beyond just weather. Matthew 24:30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Where science sees random atmospheric chance, the Bible sees a bigger picture, where signs in the sky aren't just physical, but carry a spiritual meaning too. Revelation 1-7 adds, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." Here, the clouds aren't just background, they're part of the revelation. Compared to the careful, open-ended explanations from experts, the Bible's view gives a clear thread of meaning that runs from the past right up to today, tying the event to a much larger plan. That face in the clouds may have disappeared after just a few minutes, but the impression it left isn't fading anytime soon. If it's a sign from someone watching and reminding us, the next appearance won't be some vague shape in the sky, it'll be much clearer. And then, no one will be able to say they weren't warned. 3. Controlled descent. Up in the Colorado sky, near the Rocky Mountains, bright, fiery streaks suddenly dropped from high up. They lined up like a controlled formation, not falling freely, but gliding down smoothly, almost like an invisible hand was guiding them. Pilot Wyatt Harmon caught the whole thing on video from thousands of feet up. Within just a few hours, the clip blew up online with people panicking and shouting, "This is the end of the world!" If you were standing under that sky, could you really stay calm and call it just a coincidence? Those glowing streaks didn't come crashing down like a meteor. They moved slowly, almost in perfect sync, keeping steady distance from each other. The light flared up, then faded, all at the same rhythm. No sonic booms, no wild trailing smoke. NBC News and the Today Show mentioned it could be a drone swarm or space debris, but NASA never put out any official report about meteors falling in that area. When you look closely, they weren't scattering randomly. They were lined up, orderly, and then just disappeared, like they'd finished a planned path. Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great signs from heaven, and great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences." When you read that, you can't ignore the words, "great signs from heaven." Those fiery streaks showed up out of nowhere and moved like they were under control. It makes you wonder, could this be one of those signs we were warned about, in a time when people think they've figured out everything about our atmosphere and space? Joel 2:31 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes." Believers see events like this as warnings coming one after another. People without faith just call it a rare natural phenomenon. One side trembles and prays. The other side looks for a technical explanation. But that divide doesn't change the fact that those lights appeared, got recorded, and left thousands of people speechless. Experts say it wasn't drones. No engine noise was picked up. It wasn't meteors either. The speed was way too slow, and the path too even. They rule out anything supernatural, but they don't give a clear answer either. In that gap, a lot of folks think back to Revelation